Welcome to the Twisted Tentacle Inn. I'm your Innkeeper Vase Odin, and today we'll be discussing healing cards. The Arkham online community seems to be split into two different sides when it comes to healing cards. Some say healing is a waste and you could be advancing your victory instead of spending cards and actions to heal. After all, damage and horror are a resource, and being on the brink of defeat doesn't mean anything. You don't lose anything unless you're actually defeated. Others say healing is integral to victory at times and should be considered in most decks. After all, your playstyle changes drastically after reaching a certain damage threshold, and it's likely that you'll make suboptimal decisions once you're on the verge of defeat. I am in the latter category, and this video is an attempt to explain why. Some players claim that damage soak is better than healing. Cards like True Grit and Something Worth Fighting For, as well as the Countless Allies, provide damage prevention while also granting many other benefits. This is a fair and valid point. I agree that overall damage soak, through the use of allies, provides multiple benefits and makes most allies the most versatile cards available. So why do I still like to add healing cards in my decks? Well, there are many reasons. Sometimes you can't afford to lose an ally, for example. The additional benefits they give can help you win the game, but if you're on the verge of defeat and the ally takes the horror from a rotting remains or something, and then the ally is discarded, it may very well cost you the game. If you had played a card that heals 3 horror the round before, you could have taken the rotting remains on the chin and kept your ally alive. Also, what if you didn't get a damage soak card until after you take a bunch of damage, leaving you with 1 damage or horror away from defeat? You play the card allowing you to soak damage, but if you pull a treachery that deals just 1 direct damage, your soak is pretty much useless. While I get that damage soak is important and at times does a very good job of preventing the need to heal, in my opinion, it shouldn't replace healing altogether. Now, I get that not all healing cards are good. There are some that are so bad they're beyond redemption. There are others that are only good in decks with certain investigators. There are some that are extremely situational, and although they have their place, can be useless in certain decks. But keeping health and sanity at a good level can give some players a certain level of comfort and confidence to make good decisions during play, and I can't stress this highly enough. Now that I've given a general overview of how I feel that healing fits in the game, let me go over most healing cards and their uses. I'll go through each card ranked worst to best and explain their benefits and drawbacks in most decks. I'll start with the worst healing card, Medical Text. Although it's somewhat usable in Daisy, mostly because she can trigger its effects as a bonus action, it's just still such a bad card. I think when most people think of healing as bad, they think of this card. Not only does it cost an action to play, but it costs an action to use. So to heal 1 damage, you have to have used 2 actions. But it doesn't end there. In order to heal, you have to pass an intelligence test. It's only a test of 2, but there's still a chance of failure. And if you fail, you don't just not heal 1 damage, you deal 1 damage to the target. So if you fail on your first attempt, you're now at 4 actions just to get the target to have healed 1 health. I mean, it's terrible. Just avoid this card. The second worst healing card is Clarity of Mind level 1. It takes 1 of your 2 arcane slots and is a card in a faction that needs both slots desperately and usually can't afford to have this card take up 1 of the 2 slots. In addition, it costs an action to put into play and another action to heal just 1 horror. So you're using 2 actions to heal 1 horror. The only deck that I'd even consider this in is Carolyn Fern, and only in Carolyn Fern decks that don't depend on spells. But even then, there are much better choices out there. If It Bleeds has the potential to heal a lot of horror, and it doesn't take an action to play, so it has a lot going for it. But the requirement of having to have killed a creature with the monster trait and having investigators be at the location where it died on the turn that it died, plus the player who uses the card has to be the one who dealt the killing blow, it's just too many requirements and way too situational. Next up is First Aid level 1, and it's generally touted as a bad card. It does take an action to play and another to use, but at least it's versatile enough to heal damage or horror. The fact that it doesn't take up any slots makes it worlds better than Clarity of Mind level 1. It's a card that I would still hesitate to put in a deck, but once in a while I've considered putting it in, and I've used a couple of decks that have used it. It's not the greatest card out there, and you're definitely smart to upgrade it to the level 3 version, which is worlds better, but it's still overall I think pretty bad. Strange Solution Restorative Concoction is a good healing card actually, but it's deflated by a couple of things. First, it costs 4 experience to purchase. Second, it requires finding the solution in order to add it to your deck, which may take a few scenarios to accomplish if you're unlucky. And last, it competes with Strange Solution Acidic Ichor, which is another card that shares its name, and therefore a choice has to be made to include one or the other. You can't have 2 Acidic Ichors and 2 Restorative Concoctions. It's 2 of one of them. So most people agree that Acidic Ichor is 99% of the time the better choice from all the Strange Solutions, so it's competing too highly with that. Painkillers, on the other hand, is a much better option. Sure, you have to take a horror in order to heal damage, but you can assign the horror to a damage soaking card like an ally or something, and it's also a fast action to heal. You're spending 1 action to put the card into play, but after that, you can heal for a fast action and, not have to worry. And it's worlds better than both Clarity of Mind level 1 and First Aid level 1, which each take an action every time you try and heal. The better part also is that it doesn't take up a card slot. This card is great in Agnes Baker, who can benefit from taking the horror. She basically can heal damage and deal 1 point of damage to an enemy, all without having to use an action, and that's pretty great. Smoking Pipe is equally good and works great in Mark Harrigan, for example, who has a very low sanity threshold and definitely could use the horror healing, and he also wants to assign damage to his cards in order to draw more cards, so he'll benefit from it that way. Now here's a strange one. Liquid Courage is a great horror healing card, and I would rate it more highly if it wasn't a rogue card. It has the potential to heal 2 horror per action, and the card only costs 1 resource to play. The issue is that rogues tend to have very low willpower scores, so they're usually not going to benefit from the second heal, and usually will end up discarding cards, which is very, very bad. I rate this higher than Smoking Pipe and Painkillers because in the right deck, it is a great card. Jim Culver, Safina Rousseau, and Carolyn Fern all can benefit greatly from this card. At 1 cost, Second Wind is a great value. Most rounds, you're going to draw Treachery, so usually it's going to get you 2 health healing for 1 resource. The drawback is that you have to play it as your first action, which may present itself as a problem if you have other things to do, but overall I like this card. The fact that you can draw a card afterwards for free makes it great, even if you only heal 1 damage from it. Logical Reasoning is another great card. Healing 2 horror for only 2 resources is very helpful. Add the benefit of being able to remove a terror treachery from the threat area. It's super helpful in some scenarios. The clue requirement holds this card back though, and I have found that in solo play, it can really limit the card's use quite a bit. But it is a fantastic card most of the time, specifically in multiplayer. Now from here on out, I think the next few healing cards definitely make a turn for the better, and they start to really impact the game. So Kerosene, unlike If It Bleeds, can be used when an enemy is defeated, and it doesn't require the user to be the one who dealt the killing blow. It also doesn't require the enemy to be of the monster subtype, and this already makes it worlds easier to use. The fact that you can split the heal between investigators and allies is even better, adding to its versatility. Now, I really like Emergency Aid as a healing card. It's 1 action and 2 resources to heal 2 damage. Pretty simple and straightforward. You can heal another investigator in your location or an ally, so it doesn't just have to be yourself. And this card, I found that any card that heals 2 points makes a significant impact on the game state, as opposed to the cards that heal 1 point. And the fact that you can heal an ally is definitely a plus. I think Thermos is honestly underrated. Sure, I wouldn't take it in the first scenario of a campaign unless I have a way to start with trauma, but in later scenarios where you're sure to have suffered trauma, it's such a good card. The versatility of being able to heal damage or horror is great, and being able to heal 2 points each time once that you have trauma, it's just fantastic. Its cost of 4 resources is a bit steep, but I feel it's balanced for what the card can do. Now, speaking of versatility, Inspiring Presence is another great healing card that is very versatile. Because it's a skill, it doesn't take an action, and the fact that it can heal an ally for damage or horror and ready them makes this a great card. First Aid level 3 is also very good. It can heal other investigators and allies, and one action heals both damage and horror. Both of these cards are great for cards like Duke or anyone running Beat Cop level 2 or Guard Dog. The way I see it, cards that can heal allies, if you use them in a deck with like Beat Cop level 2, Guard Dog, Duke, these cards aren't just doing the favor of healing and giving you more damage threshold, they're also adding to your combat capability. So like the Guard Dog, that's basically adding an extra damage that you can deal for free. Same with the Beat Cop. For Duke, it's an extra, skill value of 4 for either an investigate or a fight action. So it adds versatility to decks that use these other cards. Okay, one of my favorite cards. At 5 experience, Cheat Death is a card that doesn't see a whole lot of play. This is because it's in a faction with so many great high-level cards that it can get lost in the mix. But it's a card that can turn games around completely. I highly recommend this card in any investigator running specifically Sharon's Oboe. It not only saves you from death, but it heals a total of 4 damage and horror combined, and lets you move to any revealed location and play. Usually this allows you to resign and live. It's fast, so it doesn't take an action, and it only costs 1 resource. It's just fantastic. I rate Clarity of Mind level 3 higher than Kerosene because it doesn't require an enemy to be defeated. Both are great and have their purpose. Clarity of Mind does take up a spell slot, whereas Kerosene doesn't take up any slots. The thing is that mystics at higher levels can have some sanity problems, as the higher level spells tend to really punish their sanity, and this card keeps them going and going. Plus, higher level mystics do have access to cards that give them a few more arcane slots, which is a plus. Now, mystics clearly have a bunch of great horror healing cards, and St. Hubert's Key is no exception. It grants passive permanent bonuses to 2 very useful stats, and can prevent you from losing to insanity by healing 2 horror right when you normally would be down to 2 horror. Not having to use an action to heal the horror and not requiring a player window for it to work is kind of a lifesaver. The Guardian Enchanted Blade level 3 is a powerful weapon that doesn't compromise its strength as a weapon for its second function of healing horror. Guardians are a faction with historically low sanity, and they're a faction that generally fights its way to victory. Healing their Achilles heel for doing what they normally do makes this weapon one of the best healing cards in the game. In a similar vein, Meat Cleaver is versatile, and together with Fire Axe serves as one of the only 2 reliable weapons for survivors. Although it's not as strong as the Guardian Enchanted Blade level 3, it doesn't depend on charges to heal horror. This makes this weapon far more reliable in that department, and that's why I rate it a little bit higher. Coming close to the end, the Moment of Respite is a powerful horror heal that can turn your game around with just 1 action. It allows you to draw a card too, which is a nice bonus. Healing 3 horror when you're on the verge of defeat takes you from 1 bad pull away from losing to being at a very comfortable sanity level. I mean, it is definitely a game changer. It's a little pricey at 3 XP and 3 resources, but I think overall it's a very balanced card. Next up, we have Deny Existence level 5. I think this is one of the strongest cards in the entire game. Its versatility is unmatched by any card. The only reason I don't rate it as the best healing card is that you're reliant on taking a specific type and amount of damage or horror in order for this card to heal it. So although I find this to be one of the best cards in the game, as a purely healing card, it's good, but not the best. Now for the 2 best healing cards in the game. Fearless level 2, it's a skill card, which means you'll heal just for succeeding a skill test that you would have taken anyway. The 2 willpower icons are great for a faction that basically uses willpower for about 90% of its skill tests. This means that succeeding by 2 or more is very, very likely. If you were going to put Guts in your deck, you're better off putting this card in your deck instead 99% of the time. And finally, we come to the best healing card in the game. Ancient Stone Minds in Harmony. Although you can't use it in standalone mode because of its upgrade requirement, it's such a great card that I have to rank it as number 1. Healing hard just for drawing cards without having to use an action is so strong. Plus, you can get potentially more than 5 charges, making it the only horror healing card you'll need once that you can get 2 copies in your deck. And even better, you can heal others as well, so it's not just limited to healing yourself. It's just fantastic. And that is all the healing cards that we're going to be discussing today. As you can see, there are many bad healing cards, but there are more good healing cards than there are bad ones. Most of the best ones grant additional benefits or don't cost you actions when they heal. When deciding to add any healing card in your deck, be sure to weigh its benefits with its costs, and think about whether the card may be too situational to use consistently. I do hope this video was helpful for you and you give some of these healing cards a chance. If you were skeptical about healing in the past, I hope this video convinced you that healing can certainly have its place. As always, if you have any comments or questions, or you disagree or agree with me, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below, and I'd be happy to respond. Until next time, this is Innkeeper Vase Odin from the Twisted Tentacle Inn. Check in anytime. I'll talk to you then.